It was their 3-year wedding anniversary, and Serena Vance had brought her first love, Derek Chase, home. Right there at the dining table, in front of me, they were all over each other, feeding each other bites of rare steak. Derek looked at me, a challenge in his eyes. Aiden, Serena told me your steaks aren't quite up to bistro standards. You don't mind me bringing over a special sweetheart dinner, do you? Serena's face was cold. Derek is a guest. Go cut up some fruit, Aiden, and stop being an eyesore. According to the script, the goddamn awful script that had been my life, I was supposed to turn red, maybe smash a plate, and storm out weeping. But I didn't. I pulled a single, thick red pillar candle out of my pocket and lit it. Then, I opened my phone and set the speaker volume to max, playing a track of somber, resonant monastic choir music. I looked at them both with sincere, wide-eyed earnestness. The atmosphere is perfect. Don't mind me. Please continue. I actually want to watch the live show. Do you need me to adjust your chair? Maybe give you a little boost? The air froze instantly. Serena's face turned an interesting shade of green. My name is Aiden Wells, and I'm a transmigrator. 1 second, I was sitting in front of my computer trashing the dumbass protagonist of this cuckold son-in-law novel, and the next, I woke up in his body. A ding sounded in my mind, followed by a mechanical voice. Hello, host. System mission. Maintain the loving husband persona. Do not deviate. I looked at the scumbags in front of me and smiled. A loving husband? No problem. When you love your wife, you love everything she loves. Helping my wife find a perfect man is just a form of love. The highest form of love is completion. Derek's face had turned the color of aged liver. He pointed at my phone. Aiden, what the hell are you playing? I looked innocent. It's a Gregorian chant, obviously. Cleanses the spirit, eliminates distracting thoughts. Helps you to focus on the moment. I nudged the red candle closer to them. See? Candlelight dinner. Forbidden love. Mournful hymns for ambience. How thrilling is that? This is the kind of vibe you young people adore, right? Derek sprayed a mouthful of red wine across the table, soaking Serena's white silk dress. Serena shrieked and leaped up. She glared at me, her eyes spitting fire. Aiden, have you lost your mind? I sighed, picked up a napkin from the table, and walked over. Serena instinctively backed up, assuming I was going to grab her. Instead, I walked straight to Derek and gently dabbed the wine off the corner of his mouth. Take it easy, Derek. Don't choke. I spoke softly, projecting my voice slightly. Serena's dress can be replaced. But if you hurt yourself or catch a fit, how am I supposed to explain that to my wife? Derek froze completely, looking like he'd been struck by lightning. Serena's expression shifted from pure fury to utter bewilderment, and finally, to extreme humiliation. She snatched the napkin from my hand and threw it on the floor. Get back to your room. You got it, boss. I turned obediently, but before leaving, I efficiently scooped up every plate, knife, fork, and wine glass from the table. As I passed Derek, I paused, digging a small box out of my pocket and slipping it into his hand. I made sure to raise my voice. Hey, Derek, I noticed you seem to have a lot of night sweats and dark circles lately. I specifically bought you this pack of Max Drive Ultra supplements. I wink. Make sure you take them regularly. Wouldn't want Serena to be disappointed. Honestly, I worry myself sick about your happiness. With Serena's murderous glare burning into my back, I whistled a happy tune and retreated to the bedroom. Crash! The sound of plates shattering followed me. Their beautiful candlelight dinner was officially ruined. Late that night, I was lying in bed, scrolling through ridiculous TikToks, my shoulders shaking with silent laughter. A knock came at the door. It was Serena. Aiden, are you asleep? Her voice was thick with suppressed rage. I immediately slipped on the noise, canceling earbuds I'd already prepped, feigning deep sleep. Serena stood outside for a long time. Hearing the muffled, choked, whimpering sounds coming from the room, she assumed I was crying. Annoyed, she ran a hand through her hair, but a flicker of guilt actually stirred within her. She probably thought Aiden loved her so much he was having a nervous breakdown. The next morning, I woke up early, humming a tune as I prepared breakfast. Serena emerged from the guest room, sporting 2 heavy bags under her eyes. She stopped short when she saw the sandwiches and milk on the table. I greeted her warmly. Morning, babe. You didn't eat well last night, so I made this especially for you. Dig in. She looked at me, clearly hesitant. I ignored her, placing another serving of breakfast onto a tray and heading for the door. I'm going to take a plate to Derek, too. He must be starving after last night. I opened the container, revealing a steaming smoked salmon omelet, accompanied by a thick, dark Superboost protein smoothie. Serena's face went green again. The moment I stepped out, I received a text from her. Aiden, if you pull one more stunt, we're filing for divorce. I looked at the text and smiled. Divorce? That sounds fantastic. But first, I need to enjoy the show. Serena told me she was heading to Vance Holdings and ordered me to stay home. How could I possibly pass up such an opportunity? Honey, I'm coming with you. I offered brightly. Derek said he wanted to tour your company, right? I'll drive him. Can't let a valued guest feel unwelcome. Serena frowned, but finally, she irritably agreed. In the car, Derek sat in the passenger seat, deliberately resting his hand on Serena's hand, which was gripping the gear shift. Serena, you're so commanding when you drive. It's a real turn on. Serena didn't pull her hand away, just gave a cool. I slammed the gas pedal down. The car lurched forward violently. Derek's head slammed hard into the glove compartment. Aiden, can you drive, you prick? I looked apologetic. My bad, Derek. Seeing you two lovebirds so cozy, I got excited and my foot slipped. Then, I turned on the car stereo. And I'm here to remind you of the mess you left when you went away. Alanis Morissette's angry vocals blasted through the speakers. I even sang along. Derek's face was as dark as a coal scuttle. Serena let out a deep breath and immediately turned the sound system off. The atmosphere in the car was suffocating. We finally reached the company headquarters. Derek immediately adopted the air of an executive, trailing Serena and pointing out flaws in the corporate environment. Serena, I think the front desk design here is a little dated. And this pathetic ficus? Terrible taste. The employees watched the man curiously, then looked at me, trailing behind like a pitiful attendant. I smiled faintly, walked to the trunk, and opened the hatch. I hauled out a massive, embroidered satin banner. Gold lettering across the front read, "A warm welcome, T.O. Derek Chase, professional home wrecker and corner pulling specialist." I even brought a small brass cymbal. Clang, clang, clang. I banged the cymbal as I marched into the lobby. "Step right up, folks. The CEO's White Knight is here for a tour." I shouted. "Come learn from a master about what it takes to be a professional home wrecker." The entire lobby fell into instant silence. All eyes focused on the three of us. Derek's face turned the color of eggplant, and he looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. In his 30 years, he'd never been this publicly humiliated. Serena's expression was beyond mortification. She rushed over, trying to yank the banner from my hands. "Aiden, what in God's name are you doing?" I looked wounded. "Honey, I don't mean anything bad. I just wanted to express my sincere admiration for Derek." I addressed the crowd. "Look at him. He's so dedicated to being with my wife. He throws all self-respect out the window." That level of passion is truly inspiring, and every employee at Vance Holdings should learn from it. Finally, one employee burst into laughter. That single laugh lit the fuse. The entire hall erupted in suppressed chuckles and whispers. "Wow, so the CEO likes them sleazy. He looks like a bona fide gold digger. That Aiden guy must have the patience of Saint, giving him a parade and everything." Serena heard the gossip and started shaking with fury. To maintain her girl boss image, she gritted her teeth and tried to explain. "Aiden enjoys a practical joke. Pay him no mind, everyone. Back to work." Then, she dragged a nearly catatonic Derek away, fleeing the scene. I was eventually escorted out of the company by security. But my mood was sky high. I walked across the street to the local bodega and bought 5 Powerball tickets. Just a little celebration of the day's victory. That evening, I returned home. Serena and Derek weren't around. Relishing the peace, I took a shower and lay in bed checking my phone. The Powerball numbers were being announced. I checked my ticket against the screen, number by number. When I saw the last digit match, I shot upright in bed. $5 million. I'd won the jackpot. Serena didn't come home that night. I didn't need to use my toes to figure out she was with Derek. The original Aiden had secretly installed a shared location app on Serena's phone. I opened it up. The location was a suite at the St. Regis, Atlanta. Looks like yesterday's social death wasn't exciting enough. They were ready to consummate their affair. I couldn't let them succeed so easily. I wasn't going to catch them in the act. I was going to crash the party. I leisurely got up, cleaned up, and then drove out to buy a cheap hotel staff uniform to change into. Next, I went to a catering supply store and for $50, borrowed a large room service cart. The cart was piled high with every conceivable green food item: broccoli, zucchini, Brussels sprouts, green bell peppers, lime jello. I christened the special package the Green Energy Detox and Wellness Package. I pushed the cart to their room door. Pressing my ear against the wood, I could faintly hear muffled, intimate sounds inside. "Serena, I've waited for this day for so long." "Derek, wait." The timing was perfect. I cleared my throat, lifted my hand, and pounded loudly on the door. "Room service. Wellness check. Open up." The sounds inside abruptly stopped. A moment later, the door cracked open. Derek poked his head out, looking deeply annoyed. Who is it? Are you guys Sari? Before he could finish, I pushed the service cart straight through the door and barged in. Surprise, kids. The room was a mess. Serena sat on the bed, half-dressed, frantically pulling the comforter around herself. She saw me and gasped, a look of pure terror on her face. Aiden, how are you here? Are you stalking me? Derek snapped out of his shock and furiously tried to push me back out. Get the hell out, you psycho. I deftly dodged him, pulling out my phone and starting a video recording. Don't misunderstand. I'm not here to catch you. I pushed the cart right up to the foot of the bed and spoke enthusiastically. I was just worried Derek might run out of steam. So I brought you both a midnight snack and came to be your personal cheerleader. I gestured grandly at the cart. Look at this vibrant green broccoli. Doesn't it look exactly like the giant pasture you're about to possess? And this green bell pepper, symbolizing the bitter struggle preceding your hard-won love. I aimed the camera at them. Come on, don't be shy. Continue. Go, Derek, go. You can do it. Serena's face flashed red and white before she finally broke down. She grabbed the nearest pillow and hurled it at me, screaming hysterically. Get out. Get the hell out. Derek was also livid. He lunged at me, trying to snatch the phone. I was ready. I sidestepped his rush easily. He missed, stumbling, and landed in a heap on the carpet. Serena, seeing this, threw off the covers and rushed off the bed. Likely too agitated, she swung a wild slap at me. I ducked again, perfectly avoiding the blow, and dramatically threw myself backward, collapsing onto the floor and immediately starting to roll around. Ouch! I'm being assaulted. The cheating home wreckers are enraged and trying to murder me to cover their tracks. My shouts echoed throughout the entire floor. Soon, hotel security rushed in. They froze, stunned by the chaotic scene. The half-naked couple, the man on the floor, the bizarre cart full of green vegetables. Serena and Derek's faces were greener than the broccoli on the trolley. Eventually, all three of us were escorted to the precinct. By the time we finished giving our statements, the sun was rising. Derek slunk off immediately. Serena stood outside the station, glaring at me. Aiden, you are insane. I patted my ear. Thanks for the compliment. I pulled a business card from my pocket. But Serena, next time you check into a hotel, remember to close the curtains. Otherwise, I might not just send a wellness package. I might send you both straight to the front page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. With that, I hailed a taxi and drove away, leaving Serena standing alone in the early morning wind, utterly flustered. She probably never imagined a cheating confrontation could turn into such a magnificent farce. And me? I just felt the whole spectacle was getting more and more interesting. After the hotel incident, Serena and I fell into a deep Cold War. She moved to the guest room, and we didn't exchange a single word for 3 whole days. I enjoyed the freedom, spending my days researching new recipes, shopping, and buying lottery tickets. Life was great. One afternoon, I was humming to myself, preparing a pot of stew, when Serena burst into the kitchen. Aiden, do you have any conscience at all? Her eyes were red-rimmed, looking ready to devour me. I turned off the stove and slowly wiped my hands. What is it, Serena? Who upset you this time? It's your fault. She choked out. Derek got so stressed out by you that he collapsed, and now he's hospitalized on 4 fluids. Are you satisfied now? Oh, stressed himself sick. I almost laughed out loud. That bastard had the psychological fortitude of a damn tissue. But I immediately put on an expression of sincere guilt and worry. What? Derek is hospitalized? This is all my fault. I shouldn't have pushed him so hard. Honey, don't worry. Since I'm the one who stressed him out, I absolutely must take responsibility. I'm going to go cure him right now. Serena watched me suspiciously, clearly unable to guess my next move. I didn't give her time to react. I grabbed my keys and rushed out. I didn't go to the main hospital. Instead, I drove straight to my college friend Mark's animal clinic. Mark, a veterinarian, laughed until he cried after hearing my plan and obligingly lent me a set of equipment, a massive, industrial-grade enema kit typically used for clearing large breed dogs. Clutching this intimidating piece of metallic tubing, I drove to the City General Hospital. I pushed open the door to the private room. Sure enough, Serena was sitting by the bedside, spoon-feeding Derek broth. The scene was sickeningly tender. Derek, pale and leaning against the pillows, looked so frail he could have starred in a Victorian tragedy. When he saw me enter, a flash of smugness and triumph crossed his eyes. I ignored him, walked straight to the bed, and dropped the intimidating medical equipment onto the bedside table with an alarming clang. Derek, I came to see you. Derek and Serena both jumped at the sound and the sight of the equipment. Aiden, what is that? Serena asked. I held up the thick, lengthy tube with profound sincerity. I found a folk remedy for you. A miracle doctor said, if you're blocked, you're in pain. If you're flowing, there's no pain. Derek, your ailment is clearly caused by blocked chi and blood flow. No wetties. A good flush will fix you right up. Derek stared at the tube, which was thicker than his arm. The color instantly drained from his face. Terrified, he suddenly jumped off the bed. I am cured. I'm fine. I feel absolutely great right now. He even hopped up and down twice to prove his robust health. I couldn't let him off that easily. I lunged forward and grabbed his shoulder. Don't be modest, Derek. This is the least I can do. For your and Serena's happiness, I would sacrifice anything. Come on, drop your pants. We can start the therapy immediately. Derek was horrified, struggling desperately. No, I don't want it. Aiden, get off me. Serena tried to pull me away. Aiden, stop this nonsense. In the struggle, a piece of paper fluttered out of Derek's hospital gown pocket. I snatched it up quickly. It was his diagnosis report. Diagnosis, upper respiratory infection. Translation, the common cold. I held up the paper and read the diagnosis aloud to Serena. Serena froze. She looked at the perfectly healthy, bounding Derek, who looked strong enough to wrestle a bear, then down at the bowl of broth in her hand. Her expression was priceless. I twisted the knife. Man, Derek, your constitution is weak. A simple cold requires hospitalization and IVs. Someone might think you were in the ICU. I shook my head mournfully. How are you ever going to satisfy our Serena if you're so fragile? Derek's face cycled through white, red, and blue, ending up deep purple. He wished he could die right there. I smiled sweetly at the two of them and collected my medical equipment. Since Derek is miraculously cured, I'll be going. Wouldn't want to interrupt your quality time. As I left, I paused to add, remember, Derek, drink plenty of fluids. This time, before Serena could even explode, Derek genuinely passed out from sheer shock and rage. The room erupted in chaos. Meanwhile, I was humming, planning what I'd eat for dinner. This show just keeps getting better. After the fake illness incident, Serena's trust in Derek wavered. But Derek was her white knight, her decade-long obsession, and a few sweet words quickly brought her back under his spell. Soon, it was Serena's birthday. Derek booked the grand ballroom at Atlanta's most exclusive hotel for a huge birthday gala, inviting all the movers and shakers in the city. His purpose was clear, to propose publicly and force me out of the picture. Serena didn't even send me an invitation. She probably assumed I would only embarrass her. Too bad. I was never one to stick to the rules. How could I miss a party this spectacular? The ballroom was shimmering with high fashion and clinking glasses. Serena, in a haute couture gown, stood beside Derek like a proud princess, accepting congratulations. Derek was wearing a flashy white tux, strutting like a peacock ready for his wedding. He spotted me, and his eyes filled with contempt and disdain. I was dressed in faded casual clothes, topped with a bright yellow Grubhub delivery jacket. I was holding a small cake box. A delivery guy? How did you get in? Security. The surrounding guests gave me strange, judgmental looks. Serena's face instantly fell. She felt I had utterly humiliated her in front of her peers. Aiden, what are you doing here? She hissed, her voice low with disgust. I held up the cake. It's my wife's birthday. Of course I brought a cake. I made it myself. Your favorite tiramisu. Derek sneered. A cheap cake? Don't bother. Serena, I have a much bigger surprise for you. He signaled the orchestra. Deep, romantic music began to play. Derek pulled a velvet box from his pocket and knelt before Serena. Serena, marry me. The hall erupted in murmurs. Everyone focused on Serena, awaiting her answer. She looked at the diamond, then at the teary-eyed Derek, and a flicker of hesitation crossed her face. Just as she was about to speak, I shot onto the stage, snatched the microphone from the MC's hand, and shouted, "Hold that thought." All eyes swiveled to me. I offered a slight smile and pulled a USB drive from my jacket pocket. In this sacred moment, I also have a carefully prepared gift for Derek and Serena. I plugged the USB into the back-end computer. The large screen in the center of the ballroom immediately illuminated. The title slide read, "The Journey of a European Elite, A Life of Hustle." The first slide showed a photo of Derek wearing a busboy uniform in a foreign restaurant kitchen, scrubbing dishes, along with records of his termination for pilfering food. The second slide displayed screenshots of his explicit chat logs with 5 different older women, whose contact were saved under names like ATM number 1, Sugar Mama number 2, and The Old Wallet. Serena's contact was labeled Dumb, Rich, Easy Mark. The third slide was a digitized version of his IOU notes from predatory loan sharks, along with video footage of him losing all the money Serena had given him at an offshore gambling site. Page after page flipped by. The evidence was undeniable. The resolution was high definition. I had even thoughtfully provided the background music, the absurdly cheerful brass fanfare of Hump. There it is. The previously boisterous ballroom was now dead silent. Everyone stared, aghast, at the suave degenerate on the screen. After the brief silence came an explosion of laughter. Ha ha! This is the European elite. I'm dying. The hustle story. More like the con story. Derek's face was chalk white. He charged the stage like a madman, trying to wrestle the computer away. I met him with a swift kick that sent him sprawling. Serena stood rigid, staring intensely at the chat logs where Derek had been insulting her behind her back. Her body began to tremble uncontrollably. The light in her eyes slowly went out. I walked over to her and clapped my hands. Surprise, honnête. You don't have to thank me. This is my birthday gift to you. I leaned in close. Congratulations on finding your perfect match, the bitch and the dog. May you be miserable together forever. With that, I stripped off the bright yellow Grubhub jacket and threw it on the floor. Under the shocked gaze of the entire room, I walked away with utter confidence. Behind me, Serena's devastated sobs mingled with the chaos in the ballroom. My phone kept buzzing with notifications from the lottery commission. The $5 million had been deposited. A new life had begun. I moved out. Using the lottery winnings, I bought a sprawling luxury condo downtown. As I hummed happily, carrying the last box out of the house that had suffocated me for 3 years, Serena returned. She looked haggard, with heavy dark circles under her eyes. The fiasco at the party had made her the laughingstock of Atlanta, and Vance Holdings' stock had plummeted. She was scrambling. Seeing me packing, she panicked. Aiden, where are you going? I already made Derek leave. I cut him off completely. Her voice was laced with cautious flattery. I sealed the last box without turning around. Oh, congrats. But why should I care? My coldness cut her like a knife. She stepped closer, trying to grab my hand. Can't we? Can we go back to how we were? I know I messed up. I was momentarily insane. She started playing the emotional card, listing all the kind things I used to do. The daily loving breakfasts, picking her up every time it rained, staying up all night when she was sick. I listened, finding it utterly laughable. I cut her off. Serena, are you confused about something? The old Aiden, the one who jumped every time you snapped your fingers? He had water in his brain. The water dried up, and now he's clear-headed. I only stayed here to watch you and Derek self-destruct. The show is over, and since you're no longer planning to cuckold me, what's the point of staying? My words were a bucket of ice water poured over her head. She stared at me in disbelief. So, you were faking everything? All the kindness? Not entirely, I answered honestly. 3 parts were the system mandate. The remaining 7 parts were purely to spite you and Derek. Serena swayed, her face turning paper white. She refused to believe that the man who had loved her so fiercely, so abjectly, had been acting all along. She grabbed my arm with surprising strength. I am sorry. Aiden, I really am sorry. Let's start over, please. I'll never see Derek again. I'll treat you well, the way you used to treat me. She began to cry, thick tears streaming down her face. I recoiled and forcefully shook off her hand. I pulled out a small bottle of portable alcohol sanitizer spray and thoroughly saturated the spot where she had touched me. Serena, don't touch me. I'm allergic to garbage. The word garbage, delivered with clinical precision, shattered Serena's last shred of dignity. She slumped onto the floor, watching my decisive retreat, crying like a child for the first time in front of me. I pulled my suitcase, walking out the door without a single glance back. Her sobs were a farewell to my ridiculous 3 years of life, and a welcoming chorus to my brand new future. Serena, goodbye. No, never again. I used the lottery funds and my intimate knowledge of the novel's financial market plotlines to open a small investment company. Unexpectedly, my luck held. The first project was a runaway success. My life had officially stabilized. Serena, meanwhile, began her clumsy, pathetic attempts at the husband-chasing penitence. She tracked down my company address and, every noon, delivered an impressive loving lunchbox. The packaging was beautiful, the food elaborate, all the things I used to love. I opened the box in front of all my colleagues. Well, look at this. The come back to me casserole for my dumb but rich ex-wife. Help yourselves, everyone. Let's see if it's poisoned. The office roared with laughter. Serena stood awkwardly by the reception desk in her expensive business suit, her face flushed, her toes curling with embarrassment. She didn't give up. The next day, 999 red roses arrived at the front desk. The card read, Aiden, I'm sorry. I took the flowers and immediately started a flower sale for charity event downstairs. Don't miss out. Fresh red roses, $10 a stem. 20 for 3. All proceeds go to the local animal shelter. The roses were quickly snapped up. I used the money to buy hundreds of pounds of dog food, which I delivered to the shelter. I took a photo of the happy, feasting dogs and posted on Instagram. Caption: thanks to Serena Vance for sponsoring the dog food. The dogs are eating well, just like I used to. Grateful. The post went viral among our mutual acquaintances. When Serena saw it, she nearly smashed her phone, but she endured. A few days later, the phantom of Derek Chase reappeared. He must have run out of money. He found Serena and tried to use their old private photos to extort cash. Serena, desperate to prove her resolve to me, immediately called the police. Derek was arrested for blackmail and extortion. Serena called me the moment she got off the phone, her voice thick with the pride of a job well done. Aiden, I reported Derek to the police. He won't bother us anymore. I was in the middle of a meeting, so I put her on speakerphone. Oh, congratulations, Serena, on removing that pest. So, when are you planning to pay me back for my lost youth? I continued smoothly. Don't worry about interest. Just pay me the equivalent amount you spent buying Derek that car and condo. A long silence followed on the other end. My executives were struggling to keep from laughing. I hung up and continued the meeting as if I had just taken an unimportant spam call. Serena's attempts at reconciliation were nothing more than a new series of jokes to me. She thought what she had thrown away would still be waiting for her. Too bad. I wasn't a lost and found. Once gone, it was gone forever. After repeatedly failing with me, Serena pulled out the heavy artillery. Her parents, my former, highly snobbish in-laws. They tricked me into returning to the Vance family estate, claiming they needed to discuss a serious matter. When I entered, Serena was sitting on the sofa, her eyes red. My former mother-in-law, Brenda Vance, looked at me with a condescending air of superiority. Aiden, we heard you start a little garage company, she sniffed. Young men shouldn't be so ambitious. Without the Vance name, you are nothing. I pulled up a chair, poured myself a glass of iced tea, and took a slow sip. Get to the point. Brenda choked on her breath, her face darkening. If you agree to remarry Serena and move back home, we'll let bygones be bygones. Serena can help boost your company. As compensation, your monthly allowance can be increased to $20,000. I almost laughed out loud. $20,000? Is this a joke? Are you paying me in dimes? My former father-in-law, Robert Vance, slammed his hand on the table. Aiden, don't push your luck. You were a useless live-in leech who depended on the Vance family for everything. Now you've grown wings and think you can fly solo, he raged. Let me tell you, without the Vances, you are dirt. I calmly finished my tea and pulled out my phone. I opened my bank app and showed them the screen displaying my current, staggering balance. My apologies. My little garage company is now apparently worth more than your entire Vance Holdings portfolio. And as for who the leech is, I smiled, putting the phone away. Let's tally the bill. For 3 years of being your live-in son-in-law, I didn't spend a cent of the Vance family money. Instead, I acted like your housekeeper, servicing your whole family. I made Serena's breakfast, I cleaned the house, I paid the utilities, and yes, I even laundered your underwear, Robert. 3 years, 109,500 hours. I didn't even earn minimum wage as a cleaner. Tell me, who exactly was relying on whom to survive? Robert and Brenda's faces turned a violent shade of crimson. They never imagined the perpetually compliant Aiden would calculate the debt so meticulously. Serena tried to intervene. Aiden, my parents didn't mean that. I cut her off sharply. Shut up. You are the most disgusting of the bunch. They are merely greedy and cruel, but you wanted it all. You wanted me, your obedient dog, to toil for you like a slave, but you also despised me for lacking status and failing to bring you glory. And you fully intended to run off with your first love. I paused, letting the silence draw out the tension. Serena, the world doesn't work like that. You don't get to have everything. Every word was a blade driven into Serena's heart. She had no retort, only tears. I stood up, disgusted by the sight of their hypocritical faces. I couldn't stand another second here. I suddenly raised my arm and swept the entire dining table clear. Crash! Expensive china shattered everywhere. The carefully prepared dinner splattered all over the Vance family. They screamed, scrambling to avoid the mess. I looked down at them imperiously. That's on the house. Consider it the check for our final meal. Then, right in front of them, I blocked all their numbers on my phone. Under their gaze of shock and fury, I walked out. The moment I stepped out of the Vance mansion, I felt an unprecedented lightness. The enormous weight that had pressed down on me for 3 years had finally been thrown off by my own hand. After burning my bridges with the Vances, my business entered an explosive growth phase. The company expanded rapidly, and my net worth soared. The Vance family, however, was sinking rapidly due to the mess Derek Chase had left behind. Derek had used his position to falsify accounts and drain a substantial amount of the company's liquid capital. With the scandal erupting, Vance Holdings faced a critical cash flow crisis and was nearing bankruptcy. Serena was frantic, seeking help everywhere, only to be rejected repeatedly. One evening, I was wrapping up a deal with a partner at a low-key bar. As we walked out, I saw Serena nearby, surrounded by a group of lowlifes. She was visibly drunk and unsteady on her feet. "Hey, beautiful all alone? Why don't me and the boys buy you a drink?" One thug grabbed her arm suggestively. Serena struggled desperately, shouting incoherently. Just then, she saw me. In the darkness, her eyes lit up instantly, as if she had spotted a savior. She mustered all her strength and screamed toward me. "Husband, help me!" The thugs turned simultaneously to look at me. I paused, and, under Serena's hopeful gaze, I slowly pulled out my phone. She probably expected me to act like the romantic lead in a novel, flying into a jealous rage to save the damsel in distress. Unfortunately, I wasn't the romantic lead. I was just a law-abiding citizen. In front of everyone, I dialed 911. "Hello, 911. I need to report a situation. Outside the local bar name on South Street. There's a group fight occurring, potentially involving solicitation and other public offenses." "Yes, send units quickly." I hung up and gave the bewildered thugs a small wave with my phone. "The cops will be here in 5 minutes. You can either stick around for a citation and a ride downtown, or you can scatter. Your choice." The thugs looked at each other, cursed under their breath, spat on the sidewalk, and ran off. The street was quiet again. Serena was still slumped on the ground, staring at me in disbelief. She watched me coolly put my phone away, turn, and walk toward my car without a trace of hesitation. My gaze hadn't lingered on her for more than a second. The light in her eyes died completely. Despair, like a tidal wave, engulfed her. She finally understood. Aiden's heart was dead. She had killed it herself. I started the car. My partner looked at me, perplexed. "Mr. Wells, that was your ex-wife, wasn't it? Just leaving her like that. Isn't that a bit harsh?" I pulled into traffic. "Save her," I asked flatly. "And then what? Let her latch on me again? Let her think I'm still emotionally invested? My life has just started. I don't intend to get entangled with garbage ever again." The car merged into the flow, leaving her solitary figure far behind. The mandatory divorce waiting period finally ended. I arrived at the county courthouse bright and early, feeling as excited as if I were going to get married. But I waited and waited. No sign of Serena. She wouldn't answer calls or texts. I smirked. Did she think stalling would make me change my mind? Childish. I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Hey, Mr. Jimenez, you can start the performance now." 10 minutes later, a spectacular 20-person mariachi band, complete with trumpets and large basses, arrived at the courthouse entrance, beating drums and playing festive, upbeat music. The two lead performers unrolled a gigantic red banner. It read, "Celebrating Aiden Wells' freedom from the wicked ex-wife. Joyful welcome to the bachelor life." The spectacle was more boisterous than New Year's Eve. Passers-by immediately pulled out their phones, snapping photos and recording videos. Several local influencers started live streams. No way. A celebration this big for a divorce? How bad was his marriage? This guy is ecstatic. What felony did his wife commit? The incident went viral instantly. In under half an hour, the hashtag courthouse riot for divorce was trending across Atlanta social media. Serena finally couldn't stand it. Wearing huge sunglasses and a mask, she appeared at the courthouse, supported by her assistant, looking utterly defeated. Seeing me, she shook with fury. "Aiden, do you really have to humiliate me like this?" I pointed to the banner. "Humiliate? No, this is a blessing. I'm celebrating your freedom, Ms. Vance. May you quickly find your next fallback guy." Under the sympathetic yet intensely gossipy eyes of the crowd, Serena practically fled into the building. During the filing process, her hand was shaking so badly she misspelled her own name several times. Just before the clerk stamped the final papers, she couldn't help but speak, her voice thick with tears. "Aiden, is there really no chance for us?" I took the pen from her hand and helped her sign the last letter. "Sign it. Don't hold up my champagne celebration tonight." When the two red divorce certificates were handed to us, I snatched mine instantly, treating it like a priceless relic, and kissed it loudly. Then, I turned back to the ashen-faced Serena and gave her the most radiant smile I'd worn in 3 years. "Serena, Thank you for letting me go. May you die alone and despised by everyone. With that, I ran out to the mariachi band like a victorious general. Comrades, play the music. Dance. The joyous cacophony of the trumpets and drums began again, drowning out the woman's suppressed sobs behind me. I, Aiden Wells, officially declared, I am free. Life after the divorce was amazing. My company grew rapidly, quickly establishing a foothold in Atlanta and becoming a rising star in the business world. Serena, however, had hit rock bottom. Vance Holdings eventually failed and filed for bankruptcy. The Vance family went from being Atlanta elite to debt-ridden commoners overnight. Robert and Brenda couldn't handle the fall, spending their days weeping at home. Serena was forced to sell off all her assets and move into an old, run-down apartment complex, relying on low-wage odd jobs to survive. Worse, Derek Chase was out of jail. He hadn't served much time, as the extortion amount was relatively minor. Once released, he focused all his rage on Serena. He believed she had ruined his life. Late one night, he ambushed Serena on her way home from work. A heated argument escalated. Derek, losing control, pulled out a knife he carried. The next morning, I saw the news on the financial page. Former CEO reduced to cleaning, stabbed by ex-boyfriend in vicious retaliation. The news included a disturbing photo of Serena lying in a pool of blood. My new assistant, Sam, saw the report and cautiously asked me, Mr. Well, should we go visit her at the hospital? I was sipping a pour-over coffee, looking out at the rising sun. The day was bright and new. The coffee tasted rich and full-bodied. Visit her? I asked. To watch dogs bite dogs. I shook my head. No interest. I put down the paper and picked up the latest project proposal. Speaking of, notify the executives. High-level meeting this afternoon to discuss next quarter's investment strategy. Serena Vance was no longer a person in my world. Her life or death was irrelevant to me. A few days later, my phone received a text from an unfamiliar number. I am sorry. I guess it was Serena. I'd heard she survived, but the attack had left permanent scarring on her face. She was disfigured. I looked at the 3 words without any feeling. No sense of vindication, no pity. It was like seeing an inconsequential spam message. I moved my finger, blocking and deleting the number immediately. Delayed emotion is cheaper than grass. Besides, what she offered me was never true love, just calculation and regret after losing a convenient possession. 6 months later, I was preparing to expand operations in Europe and take a long vacation. In the airport VIP lounge, I finished a cross-continental video conference. When I went to get water, I walked past the main terminal gates. A familiar, yet unfamiliar, figure crossed my vision. It was Serena. She was wearing the airport cleaning staff uniform, pushing a heavy utility cart, struggling to mop the floor. The once high Midas O was now worn down, her eyes dull. The pressure of time and life had left their clear marks on her. She saw me too. She saw my perfectly tailored suit, the expensive watch on my wrist. She froze, a flicker of panic and self-abasement in her gaze. She instinctively tried to hide herself, but I had already walked toward her.